My gavel. My name is Harry Wilson, and my wife and I are longtime residents of Mount Pleasant. I'm the moderator for this evening's debate. There's a few people here which I'd like to recognize. There are three mayoral candidates who are not on the agenda to speak, but we should notice that they are here, and I think they've been handing out some literature. Ron Eddy, of course, and this is in alphabetical order. Ron Eddy, Roy Haggard, and Sean Pratt. It's a good idea that they are here, even though they're not going to speak, because they can hear the questions that you ask, because it'll affect how they help control or work with council. We have members of the media here. Brian Scapella, expositor.
No, Brant News.
Brant News, I got that wrong. Okay. Bill Johnson, is he here yet? Michael Allen Marion. Okay. Just as we start, I have to thank Brenda Davis and her group, the Brent Zero Waste Group, and Harry Rutherford for organizing this event. And we're going to set it up strictly on a, since I don't think we need microphones. So what we're going to do is start off with the candidates speak for approximately 10 minutes each to give their platform and their ideas. Once they have finished speaking, then we'll open it to the general group here to ask questions, and it'll be one-on-one. And if you are asking a question so we can hear properly, will you please stand, give your name, where you live in Ward 5, and ask one question at a time, rather than some people, as you know, like to ask three-part questions. The difficulty with a three-part question, it gets confusing. So if you ask one question, and if you have a second question, just wait your turn until someone else comes in line. At that, well, what we've done is set it up so it's alphabetical. At least I thought, yes it is. Brian Coleman, you'll be the first to speak. Joan Gatward will be the second to speak, and Ellie will be the third to speak. So Brian, we've got to start off the meeting.
Thank you. Want me to stand or?
No, it doesn't matter, whatever.
I'm not more comfortable stand. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I just, in hindsight, I wish that we had a little more direction of what was coming forward, because I didn't know I had to make a 10-minute speech. I didn't know that we were going alphabetical order. So anyhow, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Brian Coleman, and I live on County Road 18, which is just off the Coxsey Road. I'm a lifelong resident of Ward 5. I've been here for the last 63 years, and been married, be 42 years tomorrow. 42 years tomorrow. So anyhow, I'm a better listener than I am a speaker, and I believe that's important, that you listen to the people, what they have to say. And I'm proud of the accomplishments that we have achieved in Ward 5 in the last number of years, from roads, bridges. I'm sure there will always be controversy, but we have done real well with the parks, the trails, and I think, and especially the fire departments and our medical emergency staff has been second to none. So I want to thank you. I say, I don't need 10 minutes to talk. I'd rather listen to what the people have to say, and that's what I'm sticking for. I'm sticking that to my platform, and that's the way I've been for the last 11 years, and I would hope to be with your support for the next 4 years. And I will tell you right now, I am not running for council after this term. Thank you.
I should have expressed it more clearly. Up to 10 minutes.
That'll be good.
Joan.
Okay. Thank you, Harry. And I'd like to thank everybody for coming tonight. And thank you to the moderator who's volunteering, to the organizers who arranged tonight, and to Paul at Vespu's Edge Golf Club for donating this room. Fellow candidates and ladies We all want prosperity, good health, and a bright future for our children, grandchildren, and our families. And municipal government affects our lives on a daily basis. It's the closest level of government to the people, and transparency, accountability, and communication are cornerstones of good municipal government. I enjoy working with the residents in Ward 5 and other areas of the county as well, assisting with any concerns, questions, problems. Ward work is most rewarding, and it can send a councillor anywhere from Ward 5, from the new 24 highway through to the easterly boundary next to the new city of Hamilton. And I brought a map tonight, if you want to have a look at it, that shows Ward 5. And it is the largest ward in the county with the most electorate, the most population, and largest geographic area. There are many issues in municipal government, and I want to bring a few forward this evening that I think are important. First of all, taxes. Taxes hit home with everyone. And I have continually reminded council at budget time that we have a growing and aging population in our county, and we must try and keep increases to a minimum. I will not tax seniors out of their home, people on fixed incomes. We also need to be cognizant of struggling young families and respect the challenges of our farm communities. I don't support any service cuts in Ward 5. We don't have services that other larger communities enjoy, and I fought to keep our customer service offices open in Oakland and Onondaga. They're a valuable resource to the people, and they're the face of the county in our area. Economic development is another important issue for a county our size. Business and industry help to lower taxes in our county. We named the area of the Brant 403 Business Park as a green energy hub, and the business park is already nearly full. Once industries are built and taxes are being collected, this will provide relief to our residential and agricultural base. Phase 2 of the business park is just across the road at the corner of Bethel and Rest Acres Road. You might have read about it recently in the paper. The county has optioned 110 acres of land to capitalize on the infrastructure we've built in that area and expand our industrial base in the Southwest plan. And that's a good thing for all of us, because it will help keep our taxes lower. The city-county boundary issue is something else that is contentious, but the city originally requested 22,000 acres of land from the county. The lands were to the north, the east, and the west. And the county reviewed the request, and we could not justify the large acreage the city wanted. So we reduced the numbers and told the city what the numbers should be according to provincial legislation. The city doesn't agree with those numbers. They have different numbers. And so a stalemate has resulted and halted the negotiations. Some would say we should be all one municipality, and I could never support that. I think there's more county residents that do not want to be a part of the city of Brantford and have their taxes increased 30%. However, in the interest of cooperation with our neighbor and to avoid future provincial intervention, I can see providing some lands to the city, but only if proper compensation is made and other outstanding issues are resolved, such as providing water services for Canesville. We need a good deal for Brant, if there's going to be a deal at all. Waste management is another issue, and Brant Zero Waste arranged this meeting, so I thought I would talk a bit about promoting waste reduction by encouraging more recycling adding items to the list of recyclables. We have a throwaway society that with education and support from senior levels of government can make a difference and support the reduction of waste. The province provides us grants through various recycling programs. However, they need to work with the manufacturers. We piloted a trial organic waste program with green bins about 4 years ago, and we did it in 3 areas of the county: Scotland, Paris, and St. George. It was about 200 households, and the program was well received. However, when the high cost of implementing that program came forward, more than $600,000, the program was cut from the budget. That's over 1% on your taxes. And the program was only for the urban areas in the county and the larger villages. And it would have created 2 levels of service in the county. Some would be provided the service and others wouldn't, yet everyone would pay for it. So I voted to cut it from the budget. I didn't feel, as a small rural county, we needed a program like that. And I think a lot of people compost and recycle already, and we need to encourage more of that. And the county can continue to explore reasonable measures to reduce the amount of waste sent to our landfill. And I want to stress, we've never had any plans to build an incinerator to burn garbage. And the last thing I want to touch on tonight is roads and bridges. We all use those services in our county, and I've supported many of the road improvements made in Ward 5. Main arterials such as County Highway 54, Cockshott Road, Highway 24, Coleman Street East 253 have all been recycled recently. And we have invested your funds in gravel to hard surfacing programs that I supported, and many roads have been improved already. There's many more in Ward 5 that need to be done, and I look forward to seeing all the gravel roads converted in the next few years. I don't think we'll get them all done in the next 4 years, but we're working on it because they've proven now that hard surface roads are cheaper to maintain than gravel. Currently, there's 2 bridge projects underway. The Jerseyville Road, the Bob Devereux Bridge is under construction, and the Middleport Bridge is in the process of being tendered. Other bridges also need repairs, like the Brant Mill Bridge. And we need to continue lobbying the province to get permanent funding for these expensive infrastructure projects. Years ago, we used to get 50% from the province, and they cut that out. But I look forward to representing the Ward 5 residents for another term of council, bringing your voice from Ward 5 to the council table. And I look forward to being your voice regarding roads, regarding recreation, regarding your voice regarding the landfill. I look forward to being your voice for police, fire, and ambulance, and all the other services that the county provides you. So I brought a preliminary voters list tonight, and if you didn't get your card in the mail, please check it after the meeting. And I brought some forms, and I can get you added to the list. And thank you very much.
Hello, I didn't know that there was a 10-minute speech either, so I'm in the same boat as Brian, but I'll speak to my brochure. And I'm the newcomer on the block, so I'll tell you a bit about me. You know more about Joan and Brian as your councillors. I'll probably start about who is Ella. There's all my brochures are over there. And I'll just add a little bit more. I'm a fourth generation, come from a fourth generation farm family. I'm a fourth generation farmer. We are organic, partly because my father and brother both died from cancers that the doctors in fact said were related to pesticides. So I teach about environment and health. I'm a professor at Athabasca University. I teach sociology of environment and health, and in other courses as well, but that's my love, is sociology of environment and health. I'll just go back in time. I do come from a mixed dairy and poultry farm. We grew up as kids. I had 600 chickens to take care of before I caught the bus. We had one bathroom, 10 kids. It was a mad rush for the bathroom after you're in the barn. But I was in 4-H, junior farmers, all of that. And then after that, the Rotary Club sent me to Denmark. I wanted to learn French. I picked 3 countries, France, Belgium, Switzerland. And the Rotary Club said, everybody wants French. You're from a farm, will you go to Denmark? So I speak Danish, and I went to Denmark, and it changed my life. Denmark is ahead of us as far as taking care of its people. I never saw poverty in Denmark, and they're very environmental, they're very sustainable. So it very much changed my life, being in Denmark. I came back to school, and I changed my specialty as far as what I was studying at university as well. Our farm is called Heart's Content Farm, organic farm. My husband, Richard Tunstall, is the main farmer. We farm with workhorses as much as we can. We have interns who help us, and we are at the Paris market and the Brantford market. I've also served on committees. I've served for the Ecological Farmers of Ontario. I've been on our regional committee, and I've been on the executive of the National Farmers Union, and being a delegate to Africa for a conference on food sovereignty. So food sovereignty to me is not just that you grow enough food, but it's about communities determining how they want their food grown. And so for me in Brant County, I grew up knowing all of these farm families and thinking that they would last forever. And I watched one after the other farm family leave their farms. And I always thought as a kid that they would always be there as farm families, but we're losing these farm families. So food sovereignty to me is very important. Okay, I just thought I'd go through my 5 priorities. And basically, I wanted to control taxes for citizens. I'm watching right now the cost of new development, and I'm watching where developers are meeting in private committee meetings. I follow council. I go to council quite a bit. And I had no idea that there was a private development charges committee that met. So when I did find out about it, it was from a speaker that we brought in from Hamilton. He had been on the Development Charges Committee as a citizen in Hamilton, and he didn't know, even though he was on the committee, that senior staff were meeting with developers and basically having meetings. He was on the committee and didn't know that. So the next day, or even at that meeting, I asked Paul Emerson, who's the CAO of Brant County, at this meeting, I said, Paul, are there private committee meetings in Brant County? And he said, well, yes, senior staff meet with the developers. So next day I called Heather, who is the county clerk, and I said, where are the agendas? Where are the minutes? They're not posted. Nobody would know they exist because they're not posted, so nobody can follow them. And basically the Development Charges Committee, the people on it are basically people from home builders and from their developers, and they were negotiating a break on development charges. But if they negotiate that break, then families, working families, people in this room, have to pick up the costs of running Brant County. And so what the basic ask lately was for an 8-month break, on having the development charges brought up to what is consistent with a lot of other communities. So basically for 8 months right now, the developers are getting quite a nice break, and we are funding that. That bothers me. So I believe that we can control taxes if we don't give breaks to developers. I think they should pay their own way. I think council could be more accessible. I'd like to see it more accessible. I watch people who come to council and they sit, and council doesn't face them. People are sitting looking at their backs. They often don't have the agenda. They don't know what's going on. And so I think that we could maybe move council meetings around, bring them down to Oakland or to Onondaga, up to Langford. I think that we could have more council meetings throughout the county. It's quite a huge county. I'm at the far east end of the county. I have to drive a half hour to Burford or to Paris to get anything or to go to any meetings. And so I think it would be nice if council would come to us. I really like the idea of televising council meetings. Brantford does it, and they tell me that basically when meetings are televised, councillors behave better as well. I've also heard when people come to council, some people are quite upset, newcomers. I've sat and watched council. Some people are quite upset about how some councillors behave and how other councillors are treated. And so as soon as you put the camera on people, people seem to behave better. So I think that would just add respect to the council meetings. I'd like to build on the strength of Brant County's rural and agricultural economy. I think that we've been known as a breadbasket. We have beautiful, rich agricultural soil, and we need to protect that. We're losing a lot of it. So I'd like to nurture the farming community and really support the local food movement. I'm also very dedicated to revitalizing rural community centers. And so rural community centers are basically a public good. We tithed, we paid as taxpayers, they belong to us. And so if the county declares them surplus, then basically we formed the Langford Conservancy, a group of people in Langford. We stepped up, we did some visioning, we have Friends of Langford, and we saved the Langford Schoolhouse. And there's very few schoolhouses left. Even now, the Kitchen Schoolhouse was burned to the ground recently. So there's very few one-room schoolhouses. That's our heritage. And we're revitalizing it and turning it into a community hub. We'd also like to help Onondaga revitalize their community hall. It's on the chopping block. The county has decided that it is declared to be declared surplus, or they're looking at that. And so we're going to council, basically. I've gone to council saying it was designed by quite a famous architect. It's a beautiful building. It was designed by Turner. And basically, it belongs to the community. It shouldn't be sold off as private real estate. We need help to revitalize these communities. And Joan mentioned something, and I agree with her. I think that we need to have far more outreach at these rural community centers. It's great that the Oakland office and Onondaga office were saved, even if they're just used for a few days a week or one day a week. But basically, the Onondaga Hall, the Langford Hall, Oakland, we could have more outreach. We could have more outreach from recreation services so that we have yoga and Tai Chi for seniors, exercise programs that come to St. George and Paris and Burford. We could bring those exercise programs to these small community centers. The library, we could basically have some library outreach. We could set up a public terminal, computer terminal, where basically people could come and they could access, and maybe books could be delivered once a week to Onondaga, to Oakland, to Langford. So I really believe that we need those outreach services. We don't get a lot of services compared to St. George, Burford, or Paris. So I think having recreation, having library would be a nice plus. I believe that we can save taxpayers a lot of money if we did more on basically composting, recycling, and making use of our resources instead of throwing them away. So my third point is save taxpayers money, increase employment opportunities, extend the life of the landfill, and improve waste reduction, diversion, recycling, and composting. Basically, it's all about economics. Why would we throw away our resources or burn them? There's 7 jobs created for every 1,000 tons of garbage that's diverted. That's 7 jobs. If you look at incineration, it's just a few people, basically, usually men, a few people that are involved with burning garbage. If you look at the landfill, it's a few people driving the backhoe or the bulldozer. But if you look at making use of our resources and diverting them, basically you have 7 jobs for every 1,000 tons of resources, waste that's diverted. Aurelia is at the leading edge. Aurelia just hosted a zero waste conference, and they brought in the best practices all over North America and outside of North America on what communities are doing to basically save money, save resources, create jobs, and reduce waste, extend the life of their landfill. I will say, though, that incineration is a concern. Maybe Brant County itself at council is not talking incineration, but we send representatives to a regional committee that's called SCORE. And basically it involves 4 or 5 counties, Norfolk County, Brant County. And when you go down, I believe it was last June or a year ago, basically they had people coming and basically pitching and selling incineration to SCORE. And we had Brant County reps there. And I tried to get into the meeting, and they argued that there's not enough room in the meeting room. I'm not that big, and there were lots of seats. And I finally got in the meeting, and I took extensive notes, and I can share them with you someday. And basically it was proponents of incinerators promoting incineration. So it is a worry for us. If we send representatives down to a meeting like that, then we are looking at incineration. And I have heard people in this community, in the Biggers Lane, Birch area community, worried about incineration. So basically, one other point, I just wanted to reiterate, no private committee meetings. Now that I found out, even though I follow council and even though I'm a good detective, I had no idea that there were private committee meetings that allowed developers to get a break on development charges. And I don't think that we should be paying for that. And so if you need any more information, I have a website, and please feel free to pick up my
With respect to the question and answer, I was expecting there to be a microphone and people would line up behind it. Obviously, that's not the way it's going to work, and you'll have to think back to your high school days and raise your hand. You know, in my first career, I was a high school math teacher, so I'm used to pointing out to various kids, you know, the ones I liked, the ones I didn't like, to answer any questions. So as the questions arise, just put up your hand and we'll acknowledge you and try to get you in the order in which you have let us know that. Does anybody want to start off?
More a comment, or maybe asking Ella how she... Oh, I'm Ken Spog. I live on the corner of the cock shop here. We got those nice horses on the corner and the fence that's laying down right now. Ella's mentioned the wanting to cut taxes as one of your priorities, but at the same time, you mentioned the admiration you have for Denmark, which, as anybody knows, is probably one of the highest tax countries in the world. So how do you plan to, on the one hand, cut taxes and all the other things you're saying? You like to keep these buildings going. There's a lot of stuff we'd like to keep if we had the money, but which is your priority? Keeping all these nice things or the tax dollar?
Okay. I guess I would come back to, I don't think that we should be subsidizing developers. I think that we could save a lot of money on taxes not having go up if we didn't give them a break on development charges. I believe industrial development charges, wasn't there a waive? There's no charges on development fees for, I'd have to ask the existing councillors. They got a nice sweet break, the industrial charges. And then on regular development charges, there's sort of an 8-month pause there on increasing it. So that would be where I'd start first of all, is I don't think that you and I should be subsidizing them.
Next question.
Can we respond?
Oh,
I
yes.
think the
Good
question
point.
should be answered by all.
No, you're right. You're right. Good point.
Go ahead, Joan. I'll be the road between the corners.
Thank you, and thank you for your question. Certainly, yeah, it's nice to want all these things that make our garbage different or better. However, Brant is being very careful in the way we approach our landfill. We're currently wrapping up the terms of reference for the landfill, and we'll be doing a Class EA, but we're waiting for the Ministry of the Environment to comment on our terms of reference for the landfill. With respect to the claim that the county subsidizes developers, we do not subsidize developers. Developers, in my mind, are companies that come in and want to build homes and subdivisions in our county. They pay development charges. There's set rates for those charges, and council does not waive those fees. I thought this question would come up today, and so I called our county staff and I asked them, can you think of any developers that we've waived development charges for? And they couldn't. So I guess I'll have to ask Ms. Haley after the meeting who she's referring to, because if we were going to do that, it would have to come through council. It would become part of the public record. Now recently, and Ella mentioned this, we decided for 8 months to change development charges on heavy industrial. We had a very, very good reason for doing that. The reason we did it was to retain 200 jobs in Brant County. The reason we did it is to gain 200 additional jobs in Brant County. And these are good paying jobs that aren't minimum wage. They're not temporary employment jobs, like a lot of jobs that seem to be created these days. And so council had to make a business decision whether or not we were going to support an existing industry in our county. It was not a developer, and if we wanted to keep these 200 jobs and create more jobs for our people, then we came up with a plan to waive heavy industrial charges for 8 months. We're doing a review right now on development charges in the county, and this is all part of it. And after the 8 months, you can probably very well see that that waiving of fees will come off and be back on again. But I must add, previously council, in an effort to attract business, we gave breaks on development charges and no one took advantage of it. We tried to attract industry before we built the 403 Business Park, and it didn't work. Now, luckily, the business park has been a big success. And I'm a taxpayer just like everyone else in this room. And I don't want to subsidize developers either. So that's my response.
Brian?
Thank you. I just echo on what Joan has said, and she's absolutely correct about development charges. There has been nothing waived other than development charges to a company that has created 200 more jobs and keeping 200 jobs in the County of Brant and not losing it to the County of Oxford. It's very simple. It was a business decision, as Joan said, and it was to retain jobs. And as Joan said, they're high-paying jobs. They're not being critical of what anybody that's in the fast food, but they're not the lower class, lower income jobs. Going back to what the question was about taxes and what we're trying to save is the County of Brant held a visionary session here a year and a half ago. Everybody was invited, took part in it, that was invited to the county, and there was various meetings held across the county, and all put together and came in with a big thing. And 70-some% wanted services to remain the same. If not, they would take a tax increase to keep the services. They didn't want to lose the services. They knew how much it's costing as it is right now. It's not cheap. So we did the visioning session, and I believe in it. I think it was a good thing. Not everybody's going to agree on everything. But most people wanted to keep the services they got now as best as possible and manage the way it is. Some things will have to be cut. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. If service offices are not getting any business or attention to them, then you can pick up the phone to 1-800 County of Brant. It's there. 90% of the people, or not 98%, but a lot of people are paying their taxes to the bank. They pay their bank taxes to the internet or whatever. And you know, even I've had to adopt the damn thing. And so it's there, and it's a part of the way we do business anymore. And we have to look, do you keep an office open all day or 2 days a week or whatever, and nobody's visiting? We're monitoring all the calls going into all the service offices, whether they're in Oakland, Onondaga, St. George, or wherever. They're all being looked at. So I think we're trying to do the best as we can. But to say, nobody in development is getting a break right now because the charges are still the same. They're the same as what they were before. There's development charges. County of Oxford, or Woodstock, has no development charges. But their taxes are 35% higher. So why do you think they're all building along the corridor of the 401 there, right there when you come out 403? Bang, no development charge. We have to compete with them. Now we want to have industry and keep good paying jobs. The people are here. I got kids that want to eat and live, and want to spend money here. So this is why we have to do this, to look after the other people.
Is there a follow-up question to that? Because we can always come back to it if there's more.
Oh, just one thing, if I might. No one addressed this private committee that Ms. Haley mentioned. It's called the Development Liaison Committee. The Development Liaison Committee isn't private. Those meetings are open to the public. And it's part of the Development Services Office in Paris. And our public works people, our building and planning people, they get together with engineers, with a whole range of people, and they talk about development standards. They talk about making new subdivisions accessible. Do we want to put sidewalks in or not? What type of subdivision is this going to be? They talk about all kinds of issues to do with development. Now, there is an economic development committee that did recommend, maybe we should lower development charges, maybe we should lower this, maybe we should lower that. That's a different committee. So don't confuse the two. But this Development Liaison Committee, it's been around a long time. And members get appointed to that committee. Our senior staff attend those meetings, including the CAO, and anybody is welcome to go to them. There's no secrets. They're not hiding anything.
I wonder if I could help.
Sure.
Ryan raised a point about the visioning session. Yes, there was a visioning session. I was invited to participate in it. Is there anyone here from Tula Heights? Okay, Tula Heights people tried to get in. The people with the Phelps Road Tula Heights Residents Association tried to be invited. They were not allowed into that meeting. And so when we talk about visioning, who was at the table? Yes, there was a visioning. But if we leave out segments like Tula Heights, Phelps Road area, who have major concerns, then that's a concern to me. Also, Brian is right. Development charges are the same as they were before, but the deadline for reevaluating development charges comes every 5 years. They all know, council knows when the deadline is. It's the end of August. And so what this development charges committee negotiated is that they get an 8-month extension, basically, on having a major increase. We have a consultant that we paid for as taxpayers, and he recommended a major increase in development charges. So that's not happening. Basically, the Development Charges Committee negotiated and won what they wanted, and they do meet in private. There is no agenda posted. Maybe if you know about it, you can go to the meeting, but there's no agenda and there's no minutes, so it's very hard to find. So it may be a public meeting, but how do you find it? So just want to reiterate, with development charges, Brian is right. Development charges have stayed, I'm quoting him, have stayed the same as they were before, but the consultant recommended a major increase. And so that's what's been put off now for about 8 months.
Well, my name was used in vain, Harry, when I say Brian.
Sorry,
Quoted.
Mr. Coleman.
Quoted. There's things about development charges that even confuse myself. And I was more than willing to see it delayed for 8 months to get it right.
But we pay. We pay if they don't pay.
We're not paying, they're not paying additional fees right now.
That's fine.
So,
That's my point.
Follow-up question?
No, not following it.
Another question?
Another question.
Oh, there's somebody else.
Oh, someone else. Don't mind, I'll just go ahead.
I have a question. Do the councillors and the councillor-to-be, if you are elected, Al, do you believe in term limitations?
One term, 2 term, what's your question?
open it up, but I mean, in term limitations. I understand that, Brian, are you running, is this your last term if you're elected? And you're not running for an elected position afterwards?
Didn't say that, did I?
I just asked.
I didn't say that, did I, Clark? I'll leave my options open.
Okay. I would also like to make a comment. I have a lot of concern when I go to a council meeting. Ella raised this. If you watch the city of Brant and saw how the councilors use the microphones, you would have absolutely no problem in Paris. For some reason, the County of Brant councilors do not know how to use the microphones, speak into the microphones, and have people hear them. A lot of you people know I have a strong voice, and the reason I do is because of my former business. But remember one thing, if you're a counselor, the people in the last rows have got to hear you.
Joan?
I would ask tonight, did anybody not hear me when I stood up and gave my speech? I tried to use a nice loud voice, but I do agree we could have a better sound system, Clark, in the council chambers.
It's a good one, use it properly.
Yeah, if you put the mic right up close,
Yes.
then, and people don't tend to do that. And I think that, especially for those in the back row, that's a good idea. As far as term limits, I think that the citizens will determine term limits. If somebody's not doing their job as a counselor, their term is going to be limited.
Next question?
Did you want us to answer?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, go ahead,
I think it makes sense to say have a 2-term limit. I think it brings in fresh ideas. It's like, you know, you change your laundry, you change your counselor.
Jeez, I hope you change your laundry more than 4 years. I think Joan has had the right answer until we don't have terms in the provincial or federal government. No. And so I think when it comes down to municipal, it will be a fall down from the upper levels of government down, if that's directed. I agree with Joan, if you're not doing your job, they're going to turn you. It's pretty simple, and I agree with what Clark says. We don't always hear. Some councilors don't like to use the microphone for some reason. I don't know why. But anyhow, the sound system is not the greatest in there, and the microphones need to be. We've tried, but I know Clark.
There's one thing about the municipal system, which is probably the best, in that when you go in the voting box, you get 2 ballots. One for mayor and one for your councilor. But when you go to the provincial and federal election, there's only 1 ballot. If you want to vote for, to use a current name, Trudeau, you can't. You can only vote for the councilor or for the incumbent in that area. Like when you voted for, say, Dave Levesque, there was no separate paper for you to vote for Kathleen Wynne. And here we have a perfect system. We have separate councilors and a separate mayor who's not liable to any of the councilors. Whereas Harper, I'm using the names because they're current, are depend upon these people get elected, so they get elected to be prime minister. I like our system better. Anyway, more questions? Yes, go ahead.
I have a question. People keep referring to taxes. It is my understanding, or could someone explain the impact deal where everyone gets an assessment on their property through impact and how that affects your taxes?
Do you understand?
No, I didn't understand the question.
understand, but
Well, I think I know where Clark's coming from. You're talking about impacts. So you're talking about your assessment rate.
Yep.
So the mayor is very good at arguing about this fact, but if your assessment rate keeps going up on your dwelling, and your assessment is based on I believe it's based on property values of where you roughly would think you would sell it. So say your assessment is at 400,000, and so the next year it's 420. So your tax rate that the county sets is based on 420. So this past year the taxes rate was 0.09, right? Something like that. And so the tax rate did not go up in the county. It decreased a little bit. But if your assessment rate went up, your taxes went up. So I get this all the time from people that say, Jesus, my taxes are going way up. And then you ask them, well, what's your assessment on your home? Or would you take that if you were selling? Oh, God, no. I want more. So the provincial government is trying to get your assessment rate as best as what it can be in a realistic market. And I hope you're following me, but I think, Clark, you've got it. You understand where I'm coming from. It's based on your assessment rate.
Yeah. What I'm referring
But when your assessment rate goes up and the tax rate goes up, you get the double whammy.
That is true.
you want to say something?
Well, Brian has explained it very simply, and that's probably the best way. Market value, MVA, market value assessment is what is used by MPAC. They base it on property values throughout your area or houses of similar size and similar characteristics. And when that market value rises, then your taxes do as well. And so that's why we have to work hard to keep the tax rate lower, because that tax rate that we set at the county is used to calculate your taxes through your assessed value for your property. And another interesting tidbit that some may know already and some don't, farm taxes are based on a percentage. They get a break on agricultural land, but they pay full residential rate on their home and an acre or two of land surrounding the home. But the rest of the land is taxed at 25%. So the rest of us help with that. And that's a help to our farmers. They can't pay full rates on hundreds and hundreds of acres. No one could afford to farm if they had to pay taxes on all that. And after all, farmers do feed cities. They're important. And we have good, rich farmland in our county. And I think some of the best in the world, probably. And so MPAC, I think, tries to find a balance, but everybody's always able to appeal their assessment if they don't agree with it. There's always that appeal mechanism that's available.
Okay, I just wanted to comment on MPAC. There's been a major concern among farmers who have not sold to developers or the land banking company, because what they find is if I believe out in Langford in our area, we had a community meeting, and one retired lawyer basically was complaining about his taxes. He has a farm, and he said because of the land buying going on, and land, rather than being, say, 5,000 or 7,000 an acre, some people have been offered 27,000 an acre. So it affects the taxes of the remaining farmers. So they're finding that quite hard.
And if I might rebut, I asked that question specifically of an MPAC representative who came to our council to give us a presentation, and I said, what about these developers that are driving the cost of farmland up? Like Ella just mentioned, He says, we don't use developer costs. We base our assessment on farmland based on farmer-to-farmer sales. So that's what they use, farmer-to-farmer sales.
No?
Yeah. If I could comment, farmers can't compete. And so what you're seeing is the price is going up for farmer-to-farmer sales because they can't compete. They've got somebody else who's also bidding on the land. So even the farmer-to-farmer sales, if you look at real estate, it's going way, way up.
Next one. Well, I have one that people have told me about, and it has to do with the Birch property. If you drive by there, there's a sign on it now saying, this is Six Nations land. As you know, this property was the Birch Correctional Institute and institution in the, if I got this question right from one of our neighbors, the province gave the land to the Six Nations Reserve. And some of you people out there would know a heck of a lot more about this than I do, other than we live close to it. Gave it to them. Now, with this sign on, I understand they don't have it in their hands yet, but there's a sign in there saying this is Six Nations land. And the questions that I've been asked is, if it's Six Nations land, does the County of Brant have any control over that? The County of Brant has excellent bylaws, as you know. My wife and I can't put up a hot dog stand in front of our place unless we get one of the mayors or Joan or Brian or get them to rezone it for us. But the Six Nations, and they've told us to our faces that they do not obey the laws of Canada. So what's going to happen if they want to put a hot dog stand or a cigarette stand or put in windmills or whatever? And I know the county can't control what the government, the provincial and federal government did. But you have some answer for some of the people to say, what control, if any, does the County of Brant have over the Birch property when, if and when the Six Nations actually takes it over? Look, Joan.
Thank you, Harry. This has been a concern of mine for some time because we know that eventually the province will turn the lands over. They haven't actually stated who they would turn the lands over to, which is very concerning to me personally, and I'm sure to lots of residents. The lands should only be turned over to the Six Nations Band Council when that transaction happens. They are the legal governing entity, and those lands were redesignated in our official plan. I made sure that our staff redesignated them so that they were agriculture. That's what they said they wanted those lands for, was agriculture. That's what's in our official plan. That's what the zoning is. And we have our zoning bylaw, our official plan, and if they turn the lands over and they decide to do something other than agriculture, then I think we're going to have to deal with that. I certainly have suggested at council, in fact, we had a list of items to discuss with Six Nations about what we wanted to work together on. And I suggested a servicing agreement for that property because if there's a fire or if the police are needed on that property and Six Nations own it, who's going to pay for that? Who's going to respond to the calls? And that all needs to be worked out before it's turned over, in my opinion. And council backed me. They all voted to add that item to the list for discussion so that we can make sure that the residents are not paying for lands that we don't own and aren't paying taxes in our county. Because currently the province is taking the taxes off those lands at Birch, and we're not getting one nickel from the province right now.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I want to get a different topic. My memory's not as good as it used to be. 10 spots, still live down the road, like the last question. A few years back, there was serious flooding on the Grant River. Memory serves, a couple houses basically were ruined, couldn't be lived in. My understanding of the situation was those people did not have insurance. I paid tremendous insurance on my house, as do most people, I'm sure, here. My understanding of the situation was back then those people didn't have coverage, so the council decided out of the goodness of their hearts, they would take our tax dollars and help those people out. And correct me if I'm wrong, that's my memory serving it. Is there any legal requirements or anything council has in place to ensure that we don't go off on a tangent, spending tax dollars on, yeah, it's nice the poor widow down the road got hurt, but if she didn't want to pay for insurance, what's to stop the rest of us from saying, well, we're going to stop paying our house insurance and our flood insurance because then we're going to have to handle it. Like, I mean, we obviously can't afford it. So what are the guidelines, maybe from the councilors who were there, what was the thought or the legal processes you went through to make that decision? Because from what I read in the paper, it seemed to me like you guys are taking my money and you feel sorry for these people, but you know, what happens the next time I need help and legally I'm not entitled to it? So is there a procedure or a set of guidelines or rules that you follow to, shall I say, break the rules in cases like that?
Ryan?
Thank you, Eric. Thank you for the question. It's a good question, but your facts are a little bit off. It was not a flood. It was the erosion of the Newport Community Hall and the bank in that corner. There is no insurance for erosion, none whatsoever. So we were very fortunate. The county was very fortunate to work with the province of Ontario through Dave Levac, and we were able to. It was a funding that was put on there that half from the county, half from the province. And the fact was the figure was $400,000 from total, and then there was a value put on both properties, and the money was divided that way. But nobody, believe me, has erosion insurance. And it was the thing that, I guess you're right, you're looking for the goodness out of your heart, I guess, but it is part of the planning, where right now that was allowed back in those years ago, that those houses were able to be built there, same thing. So the community hall was lost, 2 houses were lost. County of Brant now has all that corner land. And we look after it, and it's just gone back to Mother Nature. And as if you look right now, there's actually being a cairn built on the corner of the property right now for the old school in memory of the school.
Yeah, and that is, Brian's described basically what happened. If you got up one morning and your back door was basically a 50-foot drop, I think everybody would be really surprised. And there's some acts of God that insurance companies don't cover, and I think that's probably what it was considered, because the freezing and thawing of the clay in the riverbank caused expansion and caused that bank to slide. And that can happen anywhere along the river if the conditions are right. But we had over more than 28 days of solid below zero temperatures, which helped cause that issue. And I was really torn because, you know, people do have insurance, but when we found out that, you know, it was not valid, our council decided that in the best interest with the province, that it would be better to get rid of those houses and not have any more liability issues happen at that site. And we have lots of riverbank in our county, and the GRCA, unfortunately, even though we pay them a levy, they don't help us much with that. And it would be nice if they could identify areas where there could be problems so that we could try and remediate those areas and prevent banks being undermined by the river's current. So I could go on all night.
Okay, I just jump back in on that. You mentioned about working with the conservation. Do we know of any other homes that we could be in the near future liable to pay? And having said that, I've got a cottage at Peacock Park that the erosion is so bad for years that we've had to pay to put concrete barriers up on our own pocket so we don't lose our cottage. Again, it's nice we're helping people, but where do you draw the line? Nobody's come to me and said, hey, we're sorry you're putting $10,000 every 10 years into Gavians in front of your cottage. Here's a tax rate. Like, there's a lot of nice things we could do, but again, I don't want to be like Denmark where I'm paying 50% of my taxes. If people are living someplace that they know 10 years from now my cottage might be eroded, should they not be responsible to start doing something now, whether it's a break wall or moving their cottage back or saying, hey, I got to move? Or do you just wait and say, well, okay, the nice people at the County of Brant are going to help me out. I'm not going to do anything out of my own pocket. I know I sound cruel, but I'm looking at, it's a slippery slope when you start saying, well, yeah, we don't have to pay this, but let's help here, because it's certainly a good cause, but then there's always going to be good causes, and sooner or later, all the people here are going to be paying a fortune in taxes for all these good causes that maybe the homeowners should have been responsible and said, hey, I'm in a bad area, I better move.
Harry, if I can follow up on that, I think you're right. The County of Brant was put in a predicament because we had a community center between the two. There was the problem right there. So we closed the community center immediately and then had it taken down. What are you going to do with those other two homes? Because what we done, we went in and rectified the situation that we had. So we were, in my opinion, exposing ourselves to liability because, hey, you did something about yours, what are you going to do about us? And I think we have had this problem before in the County of Brant. We had it up in Old Boston Ave. City of Brant, we had it on Coleman Street. It's a non-going problem when you get a river where it comes in on a bend. I live on a river that's on a bend. I know exactly how the river works. We looked at a remedial problem in there, and it was $1.6 million just to look at trying to shore that up, to get the water to come closer the other way. We have a problem on Tuesday Heights. Years ago, GRCA went in there with the help of Brantford Township and whatnot, and put gabion baskets all down there. It's working against us now. It may find that spot, is corrected, it goes somewhere else. We have the same damn problem in Onondaga. I'm trying to think of the name, Front Street or whatever it is, hanging right out over the river. We've done our best to maintain it. We went in and asphalt it in front and try to direct traffic one way. So we do try to do things, but one of these days, something's going to happen there. It's happened there where Ella talked about earlier about the old Onondaga Hall. Used to be, you drove right along there. I remember that. I'm old. I remember that when the highway went along through there. The mayor does too. When the highway went along, and then all of a sudden one day it's gone. Newport went over the bank once in the early 1900s. So it went, and it's part of the erosion control, and there's nothing really we can do about it. So the GRCA is on the fact, let the river follow its own path. We have the same problem with Salt Springs Church on Salt Springs Road. It's eroding in there. So it's a non-going problem.
Harry Rutherford from Mount Pleasant. I don't know if anybody else in here. One of my big concerns was when I heard they were selling Brant County Power. And I want to ask these three candidates if you were in favor of that.
Joan, you want to start first?
Sure.
With all
You were in favor
enthusiasm.
or-
Well, I served on the board of Brant County Power for 4 years, and I learned a lot about the power industry and saw how well our little power company was doing in the county. It services about 10,000 customers, and Hydro One services the balance of the customers in the county. Former Onondaga, Oakland, and the majority actually of Burford Townships are all served by Hydro One, with the exception of Burford Village. And when I sat on the board, the company was turned around and we started paying a dividend to the county, which benefited everybody here. And that was a good news story. However, the provincial government, the Ontario Power Association, the Ontario Energy Board, and various other energy entities within the province. There's been studies and everything done to look at how can we supply energy to the province more efficiently. And the studies have come back and said we need to amalgamate energy companies, for lack of a better word, I'm going to use amalgamate, or merge energy companies and make only X amount of energy companies. I would have looked this up if I'd have known you were going to ask that question, Harry. But they only wanted so many within the whole province. Whether they don't like dealing with the small guys like Brant County Power, I'm not sure. But basically what we've been told, and this has come forward more than once, that you should look at merging or trying to make your power company bigger, and bigger isn't always better, I have to say that. But eventually the report said the government's going to do it if you don't. So I guess to simplify things, if you can sell your house today for, this is just a theoretical example, for $500,000, and you know that in 5 years you can only sell it for $100,000, what would you do? And Brant County Power, our company was worth a fair chunk of money. I think some of you might have read in the paper what we received for that company. But down the road, if we kept Brant County Power, and then all of a sudden the decision came down and said, well, you've got a merger or you've got to do something. All of a sudden you're forced to do it. Do you think the prices, the offers that came in are going to be as high? They know we're under the gun. The city of Brantford would have loved to have had our power company. But I can recall previously when I was on the board, they didn't want to pay us hardly book value for it. And so I think there was a lot of interest in our little power company, even though it's only 10,000 customers. And council felt the best business decision, because we can take the money and invest it and make more money for the county citizens than what we were getting in our dividends. And that's why, in my opinion, we did what we did. Investing that money and using that interest to help pay for projects in the county is better than getting the $400,000 or $500,000 a year in dividends that we got from Brant County Power. Now, the company that was chosen, I was a little concerned. I'm thinking they're a fair distance away, but all the information was scored and looked at as far as how do they deal with community, and council felt they would serve the people of Brant County Power very well, that they have a good track record, and where they currently are, and that they would continue that track record here in Brant County. So that's why we did what we did, and I did support the sale. That was your last question, right? And that's why.
Thank you, Harry, for the question. Joan gave me the long answer, I'll give you the short answer. If Hydro One was the winning bidder, I wouldn't have supported it. I'm a Hydro One customer, have been for 60-some years, and my father was before that. I'm sorry, I could not support Brant County Power being sold to Hydro One, so I would not have supported it. I do believe it was a unanimous decision amongst all the council. And I think if I remember correctly, I called for a recorded vote to see how everybody stood on the situation. It is a good deal. And it is a good deal that the money will be put in an investment company to the provincial government, that we're beginning the best interest we can earn on that money as possible. And then we'll put about 3.5 times more money back into the county's coffers as what we were getting before in dividends. So, Harry, I know we're Brant County Power, and I know that you felt it seemed to be close to your heart from what I've heard before, but it was a deal that I don't think we could turn down, because I look at Haldeman, I look at Norfolk, I look at what they have done. They've all done the same thing, and Joan's absolutely correct. Government's saying, we need less companies out there to deal with. And all of a sudden, they would come along and say, you boys don't have a choice. You're going to go here, you're going to go there. So we did receive a huge dollar for it, and a good dollar for it. More than I think a lot of us even expected we were going to get. We were able to pay off our debt and put a lot of money away for future.
The power. And the general feeling that I picked up in the audience that night was they were saying no. I basically made the argument that if we have a goose that lays the golden egg, that gives us dividends, then why would we sell the goose? So we've sold the goose, basically. And so I really support local food, local money, local power, and I disagree with the sale. I'm tired of the threats that if we don't do it, the province will do it. They use the same threat about the boundary adjustment. If we don't agree to a boundary adjustment, the province will force us. We need to stand up and say no, and we had a wonderful asset. I worry about how the money will be spent, and I feel that we should have hung on to our own local power company.
Harry, and what I would think is, you said how many people were servicing, with all the building that's going on in Paris, St. George, and Burford, and all the rest of it, that Brant County Power would just got bigger and bigger and bigger and bringing in more money. And I'm afraid to say, I shouldn't be afraid to say it. I think the reason the thing is sold is because the county's in deep trouble financially. And that's not going to change. We know we are. But I think, as Ms. Haley said, the goose that laid the golden egg, I just think that, we'll get that interest coming back in, and they'll have a new nice chrome doorknobs on the swimming pool in Paris or something. That money will get spent. But anyway, thank you very much.
Anybody in the back?
Can I respond to that?
Sure, go ahead.
Just to respond, Harry mentioned the growth in the county and that the Brant County Power could have grown. Well, unfortunately, Harry, a lot of the growth is in Hydro One's territory. And so Brant County Power won't get a lot of those customers. We can try to get those customers. And in the past, up in St. George, we tried to get a particular subdivision. But Hydro One doesn't want to negotiate. They don't want to give up customers. Nobody does, because customers make money. And so there's a big area in St. George that's slated for development, and it's not within the existing Brant County Power territory. And there's also other areas that aren't in Brant County Power's territory. There may be some proposed developments that would be. I'm not familiar with all the areas in former Brantford Township. However, that being said, the county is not in financial trouble. That's not why we sold, we're not in financial trouble. That's not why we sold Brant County Power. Not whatsoever. In fact, financially, we're in better shape than the city of Brantford.
That surprises me, but one other thing, is I understand that the sale isn't through. They're just doing their due diligence now.
It's not finalized.
Oh, okay.
Brian, any comment further? Ella? Yes, fine, back.
Yes, again, regarding the Brant County Power sale, I'm sorry, Gary Graham from 99 Silver Street West. Regards to the power sale, how come you didn't have a referendum on that with all the facts and figures for the people? Let them decide.
John, who wants to start with that?
I agree with you. I agree. I believe I asked for it at the Kingsville meeting too.
And all the facts and figures out there for the people and the different kinds of entities.
Joan? Sure, you want to start with that?
We held public meetings. I'm just trying to remember how many public meetings we held, but it was advertised for the public to attend, and hardly anybody showed up.
It was a good showing at Kingsville. Sorry.
In Kaysville, there was maybe, the most people showed up, 50, maybe 50 people. But in Paris, I think there was just a handful, and that's the largest territory. So we did have public meetings, Gary, but that's, there was no referendum done, and someone at one point suggested, oh, maybe you should put it on the ballot for this election, but that has to be done by a certain date, and that date had already passed. Because, maybe we could have done that for the people that live within Brant County Power's territory, but it was too late by the time somebody actually suggested that.
Just to follow up, this,
Brian?
follow up for a second, go ahead.
Gary,
Okay, go ahead.
well, we did our due diligence before, not like the city of Woodstock just did theirs. They did theirs, they put theirs up and sold it first, then they had their public meetings. We did the public meetings first, so we could get the feedback from the public. Like Alice said, the most people that showed up was at the Kingsville, St. George, Paris, and I can't remember, it was over the airport or what, did not have very good attendance, or I think it was Brant Sports Complex was there, did not have very good attendance. So most councilors try to get to those meetings to hear the feel of the public. You got to remember, the council was elected by the ratepayers in the last election, and so we have to make a decision. And I say, I think it's the right decision. The myths that are out there that the County of Brant needed the money, didn't need the damn money at all. We could have left it, but then we would have lost it eventually. And that's the sad part. Whether you don't want to believe the provincial government or not, it was going to happen. Deregulation was going to happen. It's already taken place. It's going to slowly come down the tubes. So I think it's a good deal. I don't think I can answer any more than that.
Just wanted to.
Ella, go ahead.
Kingsville was the best attended. It was the third and last public meeting. And so I think that the general public didn't really understand what was going on. And finally, there was some good newspaper coverage. And so finally, in Kingsville, they started to understand what was going on. I stood up and asked for a referendum. I don't know if I asked for it to be on the ballot, but I asked for a referendum.
Brenda?
First of all, I would like to thank those in attendance who go out for council and mayor and things, because I know it's really time consuming and you have to make hard decisions on our behalf. Having said that, in speaking to what we were just discussing about, poor attendance at meetings and things, in organizing this event tonight, trying to call people have, in this community, have a very laissez-faire attitude because they feel that no one listens to them to begin with. I can only maybe use something that's very personal to me is the dump as an example. When we started to hear that Biggers Lane was going to be expanded and Paris was going to be having their garbage community and everything else, we felt that we had no say in what was going in. There were community meetings, and some of them were way over by the airport and stuff, and a number of us tried to attend, and they were at difficult times, at graduation, at Christmas time, and things like that, and we went out to them. But we feel like sometimes, and I'm not blaming anyone, I'm just saying this is sort of what I'm hearing from people when I call them up and say, please come to these meetings. They basically say to me, it's not going to make any difference anyway. And one of the things I have a problem with is, for instance, Stantec seems to have carte blanche as far as doing all of the environmental assessments and everything else that goes on in this county. One of the things with this Biggers Lane dump, looking at the research they've done, perhaps the way that they look at it, it is the best solution for the county. However, when I read that report, I see that there is a second table of rock there that allows leaching to go through, that it comes to the south and the southeast of the Biggers Lane dump. I live to the south of the property, Erica lives to the southeast, and the creek that goes in there, 9 kilometers down, it goes into the Grand River. This is a heritage river. It's the most populated heritage river in all of Canada. And I don't understand why Grand River Conservation is not involved, or we don't have hydrologists checking this out, because I just don't think it's a good place. I'm not completely, nobody wants to dump in their area, I understand that. However, it feels to me that not everybody is doing their share, and I think when people live in Paris and it's not in their neighborhood, it's easy for them to not be as responsible about their garbage, and I just think that we need to feel like we have more of a say in our community.
Anybody want to go
I would like to comment on that. I just printed my feedback to Stantec. This is 2 years old. It's not the most recent report, but this is what I'm trying to say about council being more accessible to the community, even if it's through the consultants. The meeting for the expansion of the Biggers landfill was, as Brenda says, it was held at the airport community center. There were 2 meetings there. The first meeting was the week of graduation. It was June 27th, 2012. It was just before the long weekend, and it was graduation week. So there was a very poor turnout. I would say there were more consultants in the room than the public, and people from this area were not traveling to the airport. The next meeting was December 13th, 7 business days before Christmas. So you know what people are thinking about December 13th. And again, it was in the community center, when these people had asked for it to be here. So that's what I would change. I would say community consultation is in the community where it's affected. It's all our garbage, I agree. We're all responsible, but I believe that the most affected community should have a say. And it should be consultation in the community.
Thanks, Harry. Thank you, Brenda. You made some great points. And none of us were around when they first, the county amalgamated and the decision was made at Biggers Lane. However, the county has used various hydrologists and various consultants to work with Biggers Lane landfill. It hasn't always been Stantec. It is right now. They won the job. We usually, anything large is tendered or RFP'd so that we get the best bang for your tax dollar on who's going to look after a project. But there are hydrologists that do look at the numbers. We have, I don't know, probably 20 or more monitoring wells at the landfill. You probably know that. And those monitoring wells are checked regularly. And you're right, we have this wonderful Canadian Heritage River. My son marched in the parade when they declared that a Heritage River. It's very important to many people. And we don't want to pollute it. Brant County doesn't want to pollute it. And that's why we have 20 monitoring wells, and we have to pay to have that work done on a regular basis so that we're not polluting the river. And if there was ever a chance that the Ministry of Environment thought we were, we'd probably be shut down in no time. And so they heavily regulate the landfill, the MOE, and because we're asking for some expansion, we have to follow the guidelines every step of the way, and if we don't go any further. It's as simple as that. And I've lived in this area for 40 years, and I care about the people that live here, and I care about that river, and I don't want the landfill to impact anyone. So we have to keep an eye on it, and we are. And there's a huge report. The reports that come out about the landfill, I'm sure you've seen some of them. They're this thick, and they don't leave any stone unturned.
Can I just make one comment to that, though? One of the things they say, though, is that, oh, well, there's been no increase in the heavy metals and things like that that are entering into the river. However, you know, with the incidence of, and increases of cancer and things like that in people, and water being so critical, to me, as a society, we should be looking at trying to improve the situation, not just leave status quo.
Brant, you want to say?
Yeah, well, thank you, Harry.
And please don't think that I'm, you know, criticizing you, because I know you're in a very tough situation.
Well,
I'm just saying how I feel as a resident.
Well, so don't take this criticism too hard, because I use this on my grandkids anytime they go with me, and I say, we're going to the landfill. We don't, that's one word that I learned when I got on council 11 years ago from public works staff, don't ever call it a dump. It's a landfill. So the kids ask me, where the hell's the land being filled? But I have to try to explain it to them. It's a landfill. And we do our most best. We are not going to pollute the water. Believe me. Why would we want to do that? It's no different than in Paris, where the gravel pit is, and I know somebody's here from the gravel pit down that country. We have that water. That water is used by our residents. We're not going to screw it up. We're going to take all the measures possible to make sure that is the safest water for all the communities. So Stantec, they got, yes, Joan's right, they got the tender to do it right now. But they have very, very good staff to do this. And we monitor it all the time. Like Joan says, how many monitoring wells we got? You worry about where the landfill is over here? Where do you think the city of Brantford is? It's all on river flats. All on river flats. When that water comes there, it comes all the way around before it even gets down to this part. We're all monitored so much, we're not going to take that chance to screw anything. We are trying, we're the best keepers of the land as anybody.
No?
I call it a dump.
You
Nobody
go
wants
ahead.
to say dump, and I think we are messing up the groundwater. When you say that maybe there's no increases in toxic metals, there's still toxic metals going into the land, and there's toxic substances going in. And I know people in this community who have had cancer in their family. I know their concerns. So basically, though, we really need to keep the toxins out. We need to sort our garbage. We don't need any recyclables in there. We don't need any compost, or so we can have a separate composting facility. We need to really, really be strict on keeping toxins out. And we're not sorting our garbage. People can just, maybe you can start with clear bags, but you know if somebody's throwing a battery out, Right now, you don't know if somebody's throwing a battery out if it's in a dark bay. So we are messing it up. We're throwing magic markers in the garbage, we're throwing glues, we're throwing paint. So I don't agree with you. I think we are messing it up, and it's not fair to this community. And we need to really, really get stricter on what we allow in the garbage, in the dump.
Questions? Well, we go to summer. Sure. Can you go 2 minutes summer? Oh, here we go. Question, sir.
How much is it costing the County of Brant to rebuild Rest Acres Road? And do you have to rebuild the interchange on 403?
Joan, you want to start, or Brian?
Well, are you talking about the work that's going on right now, Clark?
Yes.
So that is the rebuilding of the Bethel Road intersection.
Yes.
And the province of Ontario is making the county do that project. And I don't know what the final number is, I'm sorry. I probably had it at one point. Brian may know, but I don't have the cost.
Do you want to explain why the province has said that?
Why they're making,
Yeah.
it's the Ministry of Transportation. They are concerned about truck traffic backing up, and so that's why we have to do it. And the other issue about 403 interchange, that's still being looked at. I am not in favor. I would be appalled if the province makes us pay for a provincial interchange. We're a small rural county, and we need to tell Dave Levac and his provincial counterparts that we can't afford to be fixing their interchanges. They just fixed the one at Rest Acres Road a couple of years ago. That's all I'm going to say on that, because it makes me angry. Go ahead, Brian.
And Clark, I can't give you exact figures, but I just can't think what I'm right now. Joan's right, we have to fix up that stretch in there on Bethel Road up to the 403 interchange there, because the increased truck traffic is going to come in there in the industrial park from Adidas. Because Adidas plant is just basically a warehouse, and it's estimated how many trucks a day are going to be coming in now there. So that's why the improvements are being made there, the turning lanes and everything like that, so the truck traffic and the traffic that's the through traffic is going from Paris to Simcoe Way can get through there on a safe way. There will be lights eventually be put in that corner. It's been needed for a while. But the light's been held off because we knew this work was coming down. But this is part of the agreement that we, with the MTO, with the sale for the Adidas to go in there.
Who made the mistake with the hydro poles?
I'd probably have to say Hydro One. And it's been an ongoing battle, Clark, that Hydro One has put us through the bloody gears trying to get this done and get this done. They only give us a short window to get this done. We went to tender for this back in, I believe, in April, and we never got permission to get started just before September. They put us right through the gears, MTO.
No?
Yeah, basically, is Adidas helping to pay for this?
There's development charges.
But weren't the development charges waived?
No development charges waived.
Heavy industrial.
No development charges waived in Adidas.
Okay, in Adidas.
I'd just like to comment, I know a little bit of the back history. It's provincial policy
Yes.
that's causing the county to spend the money. So the county has no control. It's provincial policy. If you're developing around an interchange, you must do the upgrades because the municipality is collecting taxes.
It's the same as the city of Brantford had to pay for the interchange collection at Oak Park.
Yep.
Exactly the same.
Interesting provincial policy, though. The province is collecting income tax from all those jobs.
Oh, sure.
Yes.
I just wanted to make the one observation, or maybe ask how we get this dealt with. Every year I see the gravel shoulders being graded, and I swear there's something wrong with them. They're nice, and all of a sudden, they come and do it again, and you got loose gravel all over the roads. Is there any requirement, or why do we do it every year and say not every second year? Unless obviously there's a need, once torn up, fine, but I mean, in front of my house, right on the corner of the cock shop, I mean, it's like, it just gets patted down from the year before, settled, and then they come with their plow, and it's a mess again, and it's like every year. To me, there's a perfect example of tax savings. Do it every second year unless there's an issue identified by the road crews.
We'll move into the final phase. We're going to ask the three candidates to just make a summary, a 2-minute summary. Okay. And just before I asked them to do it, before my wife and I left the house today, I had the TV on, and there's democracy riots in Hong Kong. There's the fighting going on in the Middle East. There's a whole bunch of junk going on in Africa and in South America. And so there's a lot of places in the world where a meeting like this would never occur. In fact, if we tried, we'd all be arrested and incarcerated somewhere, probably never be seen again. So thank heavens we live in Canada, this great country, and in the best province, of course, in Canada, which is Ontario. And the best place in Ontario is Brant County. I'll just go alphabetically again. Joan.
O'Brien's first.
Oh, Brian.
Oh, I think you should go backwards.
Should we go backwards?
Yes, I went first last time.
Let's go backwards.
Yeah, I thought it was first.
No.
No, not going back. Okay, 2 minutes? Okay, I just wanted to reiterate some points. I feel that Council received a recommendation to increase the development charges from a consultant, and that deadline was in August for Council to vote on that. They knew it was happening, and basically a committee that met with no agenda, no minutes, and those people on that committee basically influenced the decision to not have the increase for maybe up to another 8 months. I feel that we end up paying in the meantime because they're not paying. So we shouldn't have to be paying. Families, working people, retired people shouldn't have to be paying when developers aren't paying their full weight. I believe that we should make council more accessible and their consultants more accessible. And the most important point for this community would be when you have meetings about the expansion of the landfill, they shouldn't just be poster board sessions. They should be actual meetings where people can listen to questions and ask questions together. The meetings to date have just been poster board sessions, and they have not been in this community. So I would advocate that meetings regarding any community should be within that community and be accessible. I'd like to promote local food and the protection of farmland and the preservation and revitalization of rural community centers. I've talked about diverting waste. Our numbers from 2 years ago where we divert 37.8%. Maybe it's a bit higher in 2014, but 2012, we divert 37.8%, whereas Boulder, Colorado, diverts 85%. That would really stretch the lifetime of the landfill. It would reduce costs. And remember, when you divert, you create 7 jobs for every 1,000 tons of garbage. And then visioning. If we are doing visioning, then we shouldn't have closed doors and leave people out. If we did a visioning session, I tried to help Tualahin's people get in. They could not get into the visioning session. That to me is not visioning. We need to be inclusive. So I'd like you to check out my brochure and feel free to ask me questions and to elect me as councillor. Thank you.
G, next. That's H, G, C. I worked hard, take it. We only had a one-room class, and I do remember my alphabet. HGC.
Thank you, Brian. I just thought maybe I could get away with going last, but I guess you get the last word. I would like to, again, thank everybody for coming this evening. I think we've had good discussion, good questions. I have listened to your concerns tonight. I think that some of the information about the landfill that was raised, as soon as I saw the first meeting was going to be at the Airport Community Center, I called staff and I said, why is the meeting there and not in the community where the landfill is? And the answer was that we put it central in the county. And I said, well, I think it needs to go down either to Mount Pleasant or somewhere closer to the landfill so people don't have to drive so far. I said they won't turn up if it's so far away. So I'm hoping when we have the Class EA public information centers that they will be closer. I'm going to stress that to our staff, that that issue came up this evening, that they should be in the community where the landfill is closest to, where there's a good public venue such as Mount Pleasant. That hall always has good turnouts for public meetings. The communities surrounding this area will go there. And I think that there's been good discussion about the landfill tonight, about roads. I want to reiterate that we do not subsidize developers, and I think that development charges are an important part of the county doing business in Brant, and we're looking at a review right now. The review should be complete in 7 months now, maybe. Originally it was 8, but I think a month's gone by. Don't quote me on the dates, but we wanted to get it right. We could have passed it back at the meeting that Ella had said she attended. But if it wasn't correct and people challenged it and it went to the Ontario Municipal Board, it would have been tied up a lot longer probably than 8 months. So we want to get it right, and we're working on it. And I just wanted to make mention tonight, communication is important with our residents. And recently I attended a session. We're going to be improving the county website, and we're launching a new website on October 10th. It's going live, so I hope that you'll check it out. We've tried to make it more user-friendly for everyone. And we also had a very good report recently on OPP community satisfaction. I brought the survey with me tonight if anyone wants to look at it. And don't forget, if you didn't get your voter card, to check this list tonight. So again, thank you very much. And I look forward to serving you for another 4 years.
Again, I would like to thank everybody for coming tonight and thank the group for organization of this meeting tonight. It's been, I think we all learn from it. We all learn and try to listen. I do know that as when you're sitting there at the table of the county council, you're sitting there as in behalf of the residents of Ward 5. You're also looking at everything in the whole county. So I've always said, I could live if we were just have one set of councilors from the whole county. You're elected at large, because that's what you're there representing. So when you're voting on the whole county. You all have ward issues. Ward issues are something that you take to your councilor, whoever it is. Whether it's a landfill, or whether it's a pothole on a road, or their garbage doesn't get picked up, or they're not happy with police protection, or whatever. That's ward issues. But when you're sitting at that table, You remember, you're voting for on behalf of the whole county. So whether it's the far end of Onondaga, the far end of over here at Calvin, or the north end up by Air, you're looking after the whole county, and that's the way I've always felt I've dealt with the issues. I look at it, whether it's the hydro, ambulance, fire, or whatever. It's the whole county of Brant. And I will stick to that if I get the chance to do it for another 4 more years. I appreciate it. Thank you for your support. You've got my phone number. You have my email. Everybody's free to call me. I get the gears every day when I go through Tim Hortons out of Canesville. Because we've always called that the second council chambers in the county. Because everybody comes there and gets their bitch. Says what they want to say. So you go through the drive-through, they'll get you. I guarantee it. So thank you very much. I hope you can support me again for another 4 more years. Thank you.
Well, you were thanking us, but we thank you, the three of you. It's, the three of you can express yourself very well, and that's why I think the audience here is pretty well informed as to what you're planning on doing and how you would vote in various situations. I also have to thank the group for coming. Now, lastly, I imagine there's questions that you have that may be more pertinent to yourself or your house, the land you're on, and you would, rather than bring it up here, you want to talk to them, these three personally, and also to our mayoral candidate. Phone them. 3 in the morning, they're glad. They'll never talk to me again. Thanks very much for coming out.